right. Good morning and welcome. My name is Christina Groff. I am the president and CEO of the Cheektowaga Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you all for joining us in the second of our Resilience series of webinars this week. Cautious optimism on behalf of the business community was a takeaway during yesterday's Future Economic Outlook presentation with KeyBank's Buffalo Market President, Michael McMahon. Today, we're going to take a deeper dive into the hospitality and tourism industry and are joined by Mark Dorr and Abby Briscoe, who Mark serves as the president of the New York State Hospitality and Tourism Association. They represent more than 1,100 members from across the state, including many here in Buffalo and Western New York. And our own Patrick Kaler, Visit Buffalo Niagara's president and CEO, serves on the association's board of directors. They have a mission to lead and protect the New York State hospitality and tourism industry by providing advocacy, education, and resources. And we know that charge is more critical today than ever. With Cheektowaga home to the Buffalo Niagara International Airport, retail shopping destinations like the Walden Galleria, and significant accommodations, restaurants, and event and entertainment venues throughout the town, we were thrilled to have the opportunity to connect with Mark and the team and have them share some key insights into the industry and what we can collectively do to contribute to the long-term economic recovery in our community. Before we turn it over to Mark, just a quick reminder that this session will be recorded and accessible to chamber members in your online member information center. We'd really like to hear from you and have this morning be as interactive as possible. So please feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to share any questions that you have for Mark and drop any thoughts, comments, or questions in the chat box. So with that, I will turn it over to Mark. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Christina. I will share my screen here. So we can, I think we have that. Abby, that looks all right. Okay. So I'd like to thank Christina for having me as we start to look at reopening pretty quickly now, the hospitality and tourism industry. And when she called, I'll share one quick story that I had a life-changing, life-altering experience in Cheektowaga years ago that taught me when you travel, you have to travel for all types of weather conditions and always be overly prepared. So my suitcase is always a little bit fuller than it should be just because of my experience at Cheektowaga. I shared with her that when I was in graduate school, I went to school in Kentucky, and it takes 2 days to get home from there. So I got in the car in Kentucky in early May, and I drove, I don't know, about 10 hours to just outside of New York State. And the following morning, I got up early, and it was nice. And I put shorts on and some flip-flops and a t-shirt and said, hey, I only got a 6-hour drive home. Weather's beautiful. This should be a great experience getting home. And about 45 minutes into my journey, and this was about the 3rd or 4th of May, I hit a blizzard whiteout in Cheektowaga. I'll never forget it. I wound up getting off of the highway into the parking lot of a Best Western in my shorts and my flip-flops and getting an overnight stay at the Best Western there in Cheektowaga. I ate pizza for 3 days and I was there for 3 days. It was such a blizzard. So anyway, when she called, I said, absolutely. I learned a life lesson in your town. So I wanted to help out the best I could. So Christina, thank you for having me. And I'll always remember your town for the rest of my life. I've told that story so many times to other people when we get ready to pack for vacation, including my kids. So what I'd like to do is just kind of go through how we're moving forward together as the tourism industry and the business community come out of the pandemic and start to reopen. As Christina said, we represent just over 1,000 members. We represent hotels, motels, amusement parks, and we work very closely with Patrick's organization, the Destination Marketing Organization, as well as his Convention Visitors Bureau, as which Christina mentioned that Patrick sits on our board of directors. So we have a real good tie-in with that part of the state. And she asked me to kind of go through some of the legislative items that are coming up as we begin to reopen. So some of the things that our organization does, we're based in Albany, New York. Number one is we do lobbying and legal advice to our members. We do events and networking opportunities, and we do member money saving programs, but most of all, we're a lobbying organization. And as we can imagine, we're all working together to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel on this pandemic. So we have engaged with our members throughout the last year to find best practices, what we can do. You know, our members, our hotel members were always allowed to remain open. They were deemed essential. In the very beginning, they weren't deemed essential. And then we lobbied with the governor's office and said, if you have first responders and nurses and doctors coming into towns, they need somewhere to stay. So luckily our members were open for the whole pandemic. However, you know, they went from 70% occupancy to 10% occupancy, 8% occupancy right away. So we're still recovering from that, but we have tried, as you'll find, to lobby the governor and the executive office and the legislators to make sure there's funding for our businesses as we recover. Some of the priorities that we have, which a lot of them are hotel specific, but some not so much. Short-term rentals, that's the collection of occupancy, sales tax, and safety and security on short-term rental outside of New York City. Our short-term rentals are your Airbnbs, your VRBOs. And for the business community, you know, that's kind of the Wild West with those. They're not collecting, they're not registering, they don't have to collect occupancy tax or sales tax. So there are millions and millions. I think it was $28 million on the small end throughout the state that's being left on the table and not collected. So there is a place for them. We're not an organization that says they should be illegal. We're just looking to level the playing field so that organizations like Christina and organizations like Patrick, who could take advantage of whether it be sales tax in your community or occupancy taxes that go to promote tourism, it would be welcome in a lot of these areas as we continue to rebuild and remarket and bring people back in. If we can get this bill passed, that would add a lot of sales tax and occupancy tax dollars to the coffers of our hospitality and tourism members. Another one is the matching funds. $3.4 million are located in that. We were able to lobby to get an extra $1 million to raise it up to $3.4 million. That's for your Patrick Kahlers of the world, some of the chambers that serve as tourism promotion agencies. If they have a marketing campaign, the state will match that dollar for dollar. So you're spending twice as much money to, again, return people back to traveling this summer. So that was important. That $1 million is going to go quite a long way. But our goal with that really was to, as we hit spring and summer and even into the fall, make sure that our marketing and promotion members have the ability to bring back the business that they had obviously lost over the last year. One of the other things is small business. There was $800 million that was in the final state budget, and it's grant money. It's not occupancy, it's not sales taxes. It's just money that can be used in grants. We're in the process right now of working with Empire State Development, who's going to give that money out to make sure that our tourism industry and small businesses, most importantly, have the ability to be first in line to get some of that money. So it's $800 million. They sent out an RFP last week for a organization to help them sift through the grants and then distribute the money. So probably that was due, I believe today or tomorrow. So they should have somebody that's going to manage the program for the state. So hopefully within the next 30 days, the criteria will be out. And if you're a member of ours, you're going to see that information on the criteria right away so that you can get that, get first in line to collect on some of that $800 million. It's just for small businesses. There should be a carve out in there specifically for tourism, because as we all know, the restaurants and the tourism industry were the hardest hit of everybody during the pandemic. One of the other business things that we're working on, it's for everybody in the tourism industry, really. There's going to be some legislation. We're just waiting for a couple of bill numbers on ADA website compliance. If you haven't been hit, you probably have heard about it. A lot of the small tourism businesses have been served with, not official lawsuits, but settlement papers saying your website is not ADA compliant. We'd like to settle with you anywhere between $5,000 and $35,000, depending on your size, or we'll take you to court. So a lot of people say, well, I don't want to take the chance of going to court. It's going to cost me more to go to court and fight this than it is to pay the, say, $2,500. So it is a very big scam, I guess, where they just blanket different organizations and industries, hoping that they can get settlements from a good percentage of them. And I know that our members were hit very hard pre-pandemic, and it's coming back again as they're starting to send out the letters. So what our legislation would do is provide a cure period. Because ADA is a federal regulation, we can't really do anything in New York State other than pass a bill that says you have a 60 or 90-day cure period. And in the letter that they send telling you you're not ADA compliant, they have to tell you what is wrong with your website so that you can correct it. Right now, they don't give you that information. They just say you're not compliant and we'd like to settle with you. And they've been successful in a lot of ways. So, and we actually had a meeting last Wednesday with the Attorney General. So she is involved, Letitia James. She understands the issue, is going to be supportive, because her job really is to make sure that the businesses of New York State are not being taken advantage of in this way. So we have some good support on that, and we should have a Senate and Assembly sponsor coming up. But if you haven't been hit and you do get an ADA complaint, please call your local chamber. You can call us. We have some legal counsel here that has helped a lot of our members kind of navigate through that. So that's a big deal for the industry, small businesses as a whole, but the tourism industry specifically for us. I would like to skip down really to the New York HERO Act. That's something that all businesses are probably aware of. They probably saw it in the media. Requires the Department of Labor to establish minimum workplace health and safety standards for the prevention of airborne infectious disease exposure. This is a terrible, the governor did sign it with some chapter amendments, but the big thing in it is the bill will also impose significant new health and safety obligations on private employers within the state, and it requires that the standards include employee health screenings, face coverings, PPE, cleaning, disinfecting, social distancing, and compliance with quarantine orders. And there's a private right to action. So basically, in a nutshell, the HERO Act is this. If you own a business, run a business, have a business, going forward, you're going to have to create a little, airborne cleanliness committee within your business. And the Department of Labor is going to set forth these standards that you have to comply with. It's any infectious airborne disease. If an employee now finds that, well, I got sick at your place because not every single protocol was being followed, they can sue your business. So this was something that happened very fast. They did not consult with the business community at all. It came out of the pandemic, which again, and all of our business members were at the forefront of keeping, the whole hotel industry is based on keeping their guests safe and making sure that they are safe and secure within the building. So the Department of Labor is going to have hearings. We're going to be a part of those, but this is Gianaris and Reyes, Gianaris in the Senate, Reyes in the Assembly. But basically, there are going to be all new sets of health and safety protocols that need to be followed. And if not, and if a employee gets sick and doesn't even have to prove it, they can just say, hey, I got sick at your property. I don't think the proper protocols were being followed. They can sue your company and business right away and immediately without having any real proof. So this is a terrible kind of pathway that the state is heading with a lot of these regulations. So there were some chapter amendments we were able to get through. The governor signed it, but with a chapter amendment offering, again, a cure period. So instead of right away, you'll have probably 30 days to fix the protocol problem. The problem with this is this could include HVAC. It could include the type of hand sanitizer you're going to need to use. So it remains to be seen, but if you can let your legislator know, your Chamber of Commerce is probably going to keep you up to date on this. We will, if you're members of ours, but this is going to change. And one thing I want to say is this is not just during pandemics. This is not during just state of emergencies. This is going to be all the time you're going to need a committee to be in compliance with cleaning and safety and security when it comes to airborne path infectious diseases. And it's more than just COVID. Airborne infectious diseases, they have to give a definition to that. Is that the flu? Is that, any other type of infectious disease that you can get? That's probably going to be the case. So we joined with 60 other business associations to fight on this. And again, the fines in closing, the fines can range from $1,000 to $10,000 if you're not following the protocol. Just to quickly to go back there, the one last thing is tourism improvement districts, tourism recovery improvement districts. We work with Patrick and his group and also the members of the Destination Marketing Organization. This is just enabling legislation. Again, going back to the businesses that are Christina's members, they need people to come into the community and, stay in hotels, go to restaurants, go to museums, go to art galleries, do all the things that everybody used to do pre-pandemic regarding tourism. So the Recovery Improvement District, it's just enabling legislation that allows a county, if they so choose, to impose a 1.52% fee on a hotel overnight stay that goes directly into promoting tourism. The hoteliers, though, have to reach a certain threshold of voting for it. So it's not just the enabling legislation happens at the state level and every county can do it, and it's a very quick solution. The hotels have to vote to approve it, accept the fee. The hoteliers are involved in the board system as to how the money is going to be spent. The reason why this is important, statewide, to at least enable the counties to do it is, if any of you are familiar on the occupancy tax, some of it's directly, in a contract. Other areas of the state, every year they have to go and present and say, this is why we deserve the occupancy tax. I know a lot of our tourism promotion agency members, it's more fluid than that. So during the pandemic, their county government might say, you know what, we're going to need $100,000 of your occupancy tax. We're going to need $300,000 now. So without the occupancy tax, that's turned into spending for tourism, that just negates the amount of people that hopefully and possibly can come into the communities and spend money. We've had several studies done over the years. If you spend $1 in tourism marketing of a destination or an area, you're going to return $7 to the tax base, where people come in and they spend money. So it's important to stabilize this for some counties to make sure that they have enough funding to continue to promote. Again, all of the businesses that Christina represents, it's more than just tourism in a lot of ways, because bringing the tourists, they stay, they tell their friends, but they spend a lot of money in those communities on the local events that are there. So just to recap, short-term rentals, hoping to level the playing field for our hotel members, matching funds, which is used by organizations like Patrick's and a lot of other Chamber of Commerce's out there. Again, state matches dollar for dollar on that one. The small businesses, stay tuned to your chamber and your Convention and Visitors Bureau and your, our Hospitality and Tourism Association. Those guidelines should be coming out soon. It's one of those things like it's the PPP. When the money runs out, it's gone. So make sure you're paying attention on that small business supplemental aid from the state that is a grant. It's not a loan you have to repay. And restaurants and hospitality and tourism are going to be some of the first to get in there because they were so hard hit. So just if they get nothing else out of this, make sure you're paying attention to that business grants for the $800 million that's going to be put out. And the New York Hero Act, we'll keep fighting on that, trying to make it a little less onerous for the businesses, but it is a really bad situation going forward because, again, lawsuits can be brought against you even when you didn't know you did anything wrong. And that's the direction the state's heading. There's also one thing I didn't add here, which is called the sweat bill, but that is if they consider that an employee feels that there was some wage theft, you didn't pay them properly, their benefits weren't deducted properly. Even if you didn't mean to do it and it gets rectified, that employee can put a lien on the business until it gets rectified, and they don't even need to go to a hearing or have a court date. They can just go and say, I think there was wage theft, and they can put a lien on your business. So we were able to stop that. The governor last year vetoed it. It's moving along again. As we all know, the governor is much more weakened than he was a year ago. So he's signing a lot of things that in the past he wouldn't have signed. So just stay tuned to your chamber, anybody that you get this legislative information from, because it's important that you lend your voice to it too. We often mobilize our members. It means a lot when we go into a meeting and say, hey, here's an issue, and we're talking to, say, a Western New York legislator. It's important that we can list who our members are, because they always ask, well, who's in your membership? And I can tell just from working with Patrick Kaler, when we're in Buffalo, Niagara, meeting with legislators, if he's on those calls, those meetings go much better than they were if he wasn't. So we often call on our local folks to step in and have these meetings. So if you're a business member of the chamber, now more than ever, you need to be active in the legislative process to make sure your voice is heard. And I think that is it. My contact information's on the last slide. I can't see if there are any questions in the chat. Christine, I'll unshare my screen. But that's kind of the overview of the business aspect of the legislative activity right now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you can, we'll make sure to follow up with your contact information as well with the group. I don't see any specific questions yet coming through. So again, just a reminder, feel free to drop any questions that you may have in the chat. Let's see, I am applying for grants for my online startup company. Yeah, so, as Mark mentioned, that's exactly right. To make sure that we're watching out for all of the specific requirements that are going to come out from the provider that the state is going to be working with. I think, little bits that we've heard, nothing final or nothing concrete on our end yet. And you guys might have some more information, but I think that they're going to be looking to work with partners in the community to be able to also help to navigate through the grant and the application process. So, like we said, as information becomes available, please stay tuned to the associations that you work with. Stay tuned to our chamber if you're a member of ours, and we'll be sure to get that information out and help you along, because I think it will go quickly.
Yes.
Any other questions? So I also, as we're wrapping up, I want to thank you again for the work on the HERO Act. That's something that we were involved in as well. And it'll be interesting to see what the final components are going to look like. Let's see a couple of things coming through here now. Would a town be eligible for tourism recovery funding, or is that at the city or county level?
Right now, it's at the county. It's going to be a county level decision as the language is written. We actually got into that a little bit last week in one of our meetings, but the county will set the framework for it. It would be at the county level.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The reason for that is because the way the language is written, you want to stay away from a county could do it, but also then you've got a town and a city and all. And then if say the additional administrative fee is 1%, and then you've got the county does it, and then the city and the town. You could have a hotel in a city that also is in the county, and then those start to compound on each other. So it's only going to be the one fee that's agreed to at the county level.
Okay. Great. And we'll give it a couple minutes to see if any additional questions are coming through from the group in the live feed. But like we said, I appreciate your connection and the ability that we'll, have to work together. I'm interested in, your thoughts on what you're seeing statewide. I know nationwide, we're looking at the labor shortage and the significant impact more so on the hospitality industry. So just any thoughts on that? Any maybe best practices you've started to see of, community partnerships? I know we're working with a few local groups in terms of talent development and working with some of the schools and internships and things like that. I mean, I know that's not a fix all by any stretch, not that there will be one, but I'm interested in your thoughts on what you're seeing from other members.
What I've heard is the best, and you're going to laugh, and I guess it's okay to say bribery has been the biggest thing that I've heard from our members. And by that, I mean, like we have amusement park members, what they're doing is saying, if you'll come back to work, we'll give you 4 complimentary season passes. I mean, it's gotten to that point to get employees to work. We worked a lot with the J1 visas too, program to bring in foreign students. That's starting to loosen up a little bit, but there are only 4 or 5 4 or 5 countries that are being able to come in. So that while the Biden administration has brought the number back up to where it was pre-pandemic, it's getting the people in from the other countries, which has made it really impossible. But it's been the same. That is the number one problem. And until September, our members are really going to be struggling to get employees. But if there's any way to, pay at a higher level, which is tough coming out of the pandemic. But really what I've heard some of the more creative ways is, even our resort members, if they can bring somebody back to work, they'll offer somebody, a week's for family to come in and stay. They're really just trying to, believe it or not, put together packages to bring the employees back. That's a benefit to them outside of just what their pay is. So we've had hotel members who have restaurants that haven't been able to open them because they can't find a cook. In fact, yesterday, I think I was on the phone with somebody who hired a cook who had no experience making anything, but they were a person willing to try to learn and come in, and they wanted to work. So they're the new chef, and they've never been a chef before. I mean, it is the biggest, Christina, the biggest frustration I think for us and our members is, and we heard this a lot last year, with no incentive to go back to work. Last year, some of our resort areas, not the cities, but where you could go hiking and biking and on lakes, they were busier than they've been in 20 years because everybody in New York State had to stay in the state. The saddest thing for them was they weren't able to put their best foot forward because they didn't have enough employees. So in order to bring them back, you want to show them they're more worried this year because they have less employees now than they did last year at this time. Back then, they were still open. By summertime, they were pretty busy in the rural, resort areas. But this year, those resort areas can't get any employees. So the only answer I have from our members is bribery. Just say, is there any way you can incentivize them to come to work?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think it's going to be interesting to see what continues to change, and you see different states taking different measures across the country. I think it was just Montana. Maybe I was reading this morning about, they're eliminating some of the additional unemployment assistance and then converting that to an assistance that will actually incentivize to return to work. So it's going to be interesting to see, that trend and that change across the country happen. So
we had a meeting about that a couple days ago. I think it was late last week. I'm 99% sure New York State will not.
Right. I think that's a safe assessment.
Anyway, but I mean, I think that's the last thing that they will do. But there are so many jobs out there that our members need to get. Because if they can employ them, they can have more rooms open. I mean, they need to be able to clean rooms and do all that, and have their restaurants open, at a bigger capacity. So we will see, but it's going to be a long road to September finding employees.
For sure. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, so I think we'll give everybody a little bit of time back in their day. I just want to again thank you on behalf of the Cheektowaga Chamber and our membership, our board of directors, for taking the time to join us this morning. I appreciate the insight that you shared and the ability to work together on a lot of these issues that'll really be critical to the long-term economic recovery for our community and across the state. So thank you for the work that you do, and we hope to talk with everyone soon.
You're welcome. Thanks, Christina. We'll loop you in so you'll be on our list of information so you can share with your members.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, Mark. Bye, Abby. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bye-bye.